Okay, this is Chapter 2, Geometric Reasoning, Section 2-1, which is using inductive reasoning to make conjectures. We start off with a practice problem here. It says find the next item in the pattern, and we're given 3 different patterns. I would like y'all to try that on your own. Pause the video, try that on your own, and check back and see if you guys get the same thing as me. So the pattern for A goes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I have Sunday as the next item because it seems like we're skipping a day there. In B, we have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Looks like we're adding 3, so the next one should be 18. And for C, we have a triangle pointing up, a triangle pointing left, a triangle pointing down. So to me, I think we should have a triangle pointing right next. Okay, when several examples form a pattern and you assume the pattern will continue, like we just did, we are applying what we call inductive reasoning. Okay, inductive reasoning is the process of reasoning that a rule or statement is true because specific cases are true. You may use inductive reasoning to draw a conclusion from a pattern. A statement you believe to be true based on inductive reasoning is called a conjecture. Okay, so a conjecture is sort of like a hypothesis in science class. It's an educated guess based off of what we know. All right, to show that a conjecture is always true, you have to prove it. But to show that a conjecture is false, you only need to find one example in which the conjecture is not true. In that case is what we call a counterexample. Okay, a counterexample could be a drawing, a statement, or a number. Let's practice creating conjectures. So for A, it says the product of an even number and an odd number is blank. It says list some examples and look for a pattern. So I know that 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 5 is 10, 4 times 3 is 12, and 4 times 5 is 20. All right, so I have 4 different examples of even numbers times odd numbers. If I'm looking at all those products, 6, 10, 12, and 20, I want to think about what do those 4 numbers have in common. It's looking like they're all even numbers. So to complete my conjecture, right, it says the product of an even number and an odd number is, I would say, is an even number. All right, B says the number of lines formed by 4 points, no 3 of which are collinear, is blank. Draw 4 points and test it out. So I'm going to draw 4 points. Specifically, it says no 3 of which are collinear, so I can't have all of them being in a straight line. So I'm going to spread them out like that. It's asking for the number of lines I can form between these points. So I'm going to draw as many lines as I can. I'm going to count as I go. So go 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so to complete my conjecture, we would say we can draw 6 lines. All right, number 3 asks us to show that each conjecture is false by finding a counterexample. So A says every person in Minnesota is a Vikings fan. To provide a counterexample, we need to think of somebody that we know that lives in Minnesota that is not a Vikings fan. Okay, hopefully we know this one, right? Miss Vandervoort is not a Vikings fan, but she lives in Minnesota. Counterexample would be Miss Vandervoort. Because she lives in Minnesota, but is a Packers fan. Exclamation point, because why not? All right, B says 2 complementary angles are not congruent. So remember, complementary angles are angles that add to 90. So to provide a counterexample here, we need to think of 2 angles that are complementary, 2 angles that do add to 90 degrees, but that are also congruent. All right. So we said above that a counterexample could be a drawing. So let's practice that here. I could draw 90-degree angle And if I cut this perfectly in half here, I'm going to have 45 degrees and 45 degrees, right? I know that 45 plus 45 is 90, right? So these two angles are complementary. However, they're also congruent. And 45 degrees equals 45 degrees. So there would be my counterexample. All right, last one. It says the monthly high temperature in Abilene is never below 90 degrees for 2 months in a row. So a good counterexample would be 2 months in a row where the temperature is below 90 degrees. If I look at my table here, looks like in January it was 88 and February it was 89. Both of those are under 90 degrees. Low 90 degrees. All right, we're going to practice this more in class tomorrow, so see y'all then.